Same thing when it comes, of course, like I've been using movies, so many examples in this series, but it's true. It's like when you're watching a movie, there's a story. There's a really, really, really good storyline. And that is the reason why you will keep watching. If there is no story, there is no storyline, you're going to turn off the movie and be like, this is the worst movie ever. Okay, so for today, we're going to go into how to actually take the brand story you came up with and turn it into like content pieces and ideas. Welcome back to 0 to 10K, the 25-part series in how to make $10,000. We are on day 21, and today we are diving deep into how to use your story to create really good content, to build an audience, people that absolutely love you, and of course want to buy from you. Now, yesterday in day 20, we went through the different type of content pieces. Remember, education, value, inspiration, activation, results, and testimonials. And in part 2 of the money series, when we were going through brand, we went through creating your brand story. Okay, so if you guys don't watch that video, after this video, I'm gonna link the playlist at the end here so you can go back and watch it, because we're gonna be using your brand story to create really good content pieces. Now, before we go into how to actually use your story into a piece of content and to show my own examples, like why stories? Like why do stories just work so well? The reason why I love to use stories in my content, with my social media and my personal brand, is because stories evoke emotion. All right, they evoke some sort of emotion in somebody. Now, when we evoke emotion in somebody else, it is much more likely they will connect to us, once again, on a deeper level than just, here's my product, go buy it, right? So for an example, if you're sharing a story about, a past problem you had, a struggle, even like a trauma, you showed how you got over it and where you're at right now, someone in your audience could really connect to that, right? Maybe they're still struggling with the exact same thing and they're trying to get out of it, and they would have never known that you went through that same thing if you actually didn't share a story. Right. So sometimes, of course, also when we're on social media, we kind of only see like a highlight reel of like, look at my life now. My life is amazing. All the results, everything I have. But we never really show like, how did we get to that point? Right? What do we have to go through to now live the life that we have? Right? So stories really just like evoke emotion, and also keeps people's attention. Like, the best thing ever is when I get a phone call from my friend or from my sister, or I see a text message and it says, oh my gosh, you'll never guess what happened. I was at X, Y, and Z, and they go into telling a story. It's because like you paint a picture of that in your mind, right? You actually keep the attention of what they're saying. Same thing when it comes, of course, like I've been using movies, so many examples in this series, but it's true. It's like when you're watching a movie, there's a story. There's a really, really, really good storyline. And that is the reason why you will keep watching. If there is no story, there is no storyline, you're going to turn off the movie and be like, this is the worst movie ever. Okay, so for today, we're going to go into how to actually take the brand story you came up with and turn it into like content pieces and ideas. Now, before I pull up my laptop and show you examples of my own, because that's the best way to show you how to use stories, you can use stories in a lot of different ways when it comes to your content. Now, of course, you craft out your brand story, so you can take your brand story and create a full piece of content with the brand story, or you can take bits and pieces of that brand story, create content out of it, or you can even take day-to-day like experiences, things that happen daily, and create stories out of them, right? So for an example, like let's say this morning, I'm literally just making this up. Let's say this morning I went out to like brunch and I overheard a conversation with somebody else and they were talking about like money or like finances. I can create a piece of content on that and say, I was out to brunch and I overheard a couple talking about finances and how they were like struggling with it. It just got me thinking about, this was me like 5 years ago. I remember I was blah, 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 broke, blah, blah, blah. Like I was basically having that same conversation with myself, right? So things like that, it really evokes like emotion, evokes curiosity, versus me just saying, if you're having this like financial struggle, this is what you need to do. right? So that's an example of like a day-to-day story that you can share based on your own experiences. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my laptop because I want to show you some real examples of stories that I have used in my content that's worked so, so well to really connect deeper with my audience and, of course, get clients and make a lot of money. Now, this is the first example I want to share. This was by far one of those top posts where people just absolutely loved because I shared a story of me creating free trainings when I was first starting out and me still doing them. So you can see here, there's a picture of me years ago when I was doing a free training at my public library. And then of course, a picture of me now in my office. So I said 4 years ago, I was hosting free trainings, and this is a carousel on Instagram. I remember renting out a room for free at my public library in Iowa to host free trainings every single week. I was dedicated in creating content because I knew that would lead me to building a really successful business. And guess what? It did. Every week, people would attend for free, ask questions, and I started to sign on clients. And before I knew it, it took my income from making $500 a month to $10,000 to $12,000 to $30,000 to $50,000. The one thing that held constant was the value that I was providing for free and letting go of the expectation of people buying, right? So I basically just started to share like what I did back then, which was doing free trainings, what the free trainings did for me, and how I'm still actually like doing them, right? And in the caption, I just like talked about it's the evolution and refinement, right? I didn't stop doing what worked for me in the beginning. I just refined it, right? So this really shows somebody on the other side that like people that are still successful, they're still like doing the work. Like they're still doing what they did on day one, just at like another scale and another level. Like clearly in this picture, you can see the difference in terms of like production. But like, if I never shared this, there might be someone in my audience thinking like, oh my gosh, she is so good on video. She is so good on camera. Like how did this happen? Right? Like she probably just woke up one day and she was amazing. Like, no, it took years of practice, and seeing this progress is just so inspirational for people. So this is like an example, honestly, of like inspirational content also / like educational content, because I showed the progression of me doing trainings, but I also shared how trainings are really valuable to do when it comes to this type of like business model. So this is me, of course, example of story with like the education value and inspirational content. Now, another example is this reel that I made. Now, this is actually a reel that I made only like a few weeks ago. And I talked about the story between me and Andy, my boyfriend, right? So it's basically like a love story with two entrepreneurs. I talked about how we met, and then I talked about how we both were building, you know, our own businesses. Now, the reason why I shared this was because I know there's a lot of people in my audience who also have partners, who also have family members, and they're wondering how to really like cultivate and build a brand and a business and still get support from them too. So I shared basically our story of building, you know, our relationship, but also like building a business. Now, this also like, it might have nothing to do with my audience. They might not be in a relationship, they might be single, but it also shows that I have a healthy relationship and I'm still focused on other parts of like my life, not just my business. And for me, that's a big value that I have, right? It's not just I'm building this big business, I'm building the most unforgettable life by being my own boss and being really, really happy. So this shows a value of mine, and it really just gets my audience to like get to know me a little bit more. So just know also when you are sharing stories, it's not just about only your business, and it's not just about only the product and what you're selling. It's about you, right? Because remember, you are your personal brand, okay? Another one I want to share is this one. So this is also like, as you can see, the best stories are really showing like before and afters. So 5 years ago, I was spending my savings to fly and attend events. Okay, so this post was all about attending events. This is just a picture, no carousel, but then I also shared kind of like a caption here. And I basically talked about how I used to spend all of my extra money to go to events, right? And I talked about how they were so impactful, so empowering for me. And this was actually a lead up for my own in-person event. I did my first in-person event this last October in 2023, and I talked about this, right? So like the evolution of me spending my savings to fly to attend events to now host my own, like crazy. You can see once in the progress, you can see the growth. This is inspiring, this is activating, but it's also like a result, it's a testimonial for myself and the work that I do. Because I know there are people in my audience who want to build a personal brand, who want to make their own money, but they also might want to do their own events, their own retreats. They might want to do different things, right? So it just goes to show when you share stories like this, it's just so entertaining. Like people want to get to know you. They want to get to know the person that they're actually buying from, okay? Now, the last one that I want to share is this one. What I learned from hosting my first in-person event this weekend. Now, this is a different style of like storytelling content where you're creating content based on like what you learned in perspective. Okay, so I could have created a piece of content that said, these are the top 3 things that I learned at events. Now, that sounds okay, but me saying what I learned from hosting my first in-person event this weekend, it just feels more like intimate. It's like what I learned from like hosting my event, right? That doesn't mean I know it all, but I absolutely learned different things, right? So I basically just shared what I learned. Like a lot of people really value in-person experiences. I'm really good at what I do. Even some like screenshots of testimonials that I got from people. It's a whole different ball game doing events versus just selling a product on social media. The opportunities and ideas that came from it are outrageous, right? So like this is just like really inspiring to show people that like it was just so amazing because I'm coming out with a vlog of this event, by the way. So stay tuned for that because you guys will see like the entire production of my first in-person event. But people that follow me on social media, they saw the entire progression of me finding the venue, launching tickets, planning to hosting the event, and now sharing what I learned from it, right? So somebody watching, it's like they really see me as an industry leader. They really see me as somebody who cares, right? So this is why it's so important to not just produce content that like looks good on social media, things that you can just like Google, but produce content that's actually based on you and your experience. Like nothing can beat that at all whatsoever. So these are a few examples that I wanted to share with you guys when it comes to really injecting your story into content. Now, I know you guys are probably already thinking of story ideas, hooks and headlines that you can create for your own content pieces when it comes to injecting your story. So you already know the action item homework for today is come up with 3 stories that you can create content on. And remember, you can use the stories and embed it into like the content categories. Use a story and share with education value, share with inspiration, share with results and testimonials. And then of course, because I'm always curious and so is everybody else, comment below what story ideas that you are going to come up with and start creating content on. And of course, since we already went through how to create content, how to use stories in creating content, the social media platforms, you guys better be posting content. Okay, you guys better be posting content on social media. Okay, because that is how, once again, you're going to bring in the clients. That is how you're going to bring in the followers and the cash flow to you. Now, I'm stoked for tomorrow because we are getting into day 22 and this is call to action. So I'm going to show you how to put really specific call to actions and invites in your content to actually get people to reach out and buy, or just like buy immediately when they see your content. So stay tuned for tomorrow. It's going to be a very straightforward, direct video because you are going to start to make sales in tomorrow's video. And heck, maybe even before when you start to create content. And like what I said earlier, if you guys missed the video on how to create content or your brand story, here is the playlist to this 25-part series. Once you click on it, you'll be able to see all of the different videos that I've already done in this series and go back and watch any of the ones that you missed. So that is all for today. I am so excited for tomorrow. I will see you guys then. And until then, of course, make sure that you stay unforgettable.